Hello and welcome to the TechGig podcast, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Sukriti, and I'm super excited to bring you another tech podcast that revolves around the latest trends of edge computing, challenges of businesses, security, etc. Now, the world is brimming with data, and as organizations seek to use the data to make the split second decisions, they need the compute power that they can actually keep up with. And that's exactly where edge computing comes in. According to market research, the edge computing market is going to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 21.6% between 2022 to 2028 to hit an estimated $132.11 billion. The 2022 Global Edge Computing Market Report also, the put forward about the future that we're talking about. When we look at it, it's going to go higher in terms of the entire revenue as well as the market by 2030. Now, to give us a better understanding of all the latest happenings in the edge computing, I have with me today Sandeep Bhargava, who is the Senior Vice President, Global Services and Solutions, Public Cloud Business Unit from Rackspace Technology. Welcome to the show, Sandeep. I'm so delighted to have you here with me today.
Sukriti, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. You hit all the buzzwords, right? Edge computing, data, security, cloud, everything is included in the webinar today. I'm not sure at the next time round when you do a podcast.
Absolutely, Sandeep. This is a very a broad spectrum of conversation that I'm up to with you today. So, without any further ado, I will quickly jump onto the questions. Sandeep, tell us about the most exciting emerging technologies in the field of edge computing right now, and how they're actually being applied to solve business problems.
Yeah, and I'll talk about five in particular: 5G, edge AI, edge computing platforms, blockchain, and edge computing security. With the arrival of 5G technology, it's really one of the most significant developments in the field of edge computing. It offers faster network speeds, lower latency, and higher bandwidth, making it ideal for applications that require real-time data processing and analysis. We can build businesses using this technology to be more robust, more scalable, and build edge computing systems that can support a range of IoT devices and sensors. And the more devices and sensors are out there measuring things, the better are the results. The second is really edge AI. Edge AI refers to the integration of artificial intelligence algorithms and models into devices, such as cameras, sensors, and mobile devices. By processing data locally, edge AI can reduce latency and improve response times, making it ideal for applications that require real-time decision-making, such as autonomous vehicles, industrial automation, or even some of the healthcare applications. Right? The edge computing platforms. There are several emerging platforms that provide businesses with a range of tools and services. These provide features such as real-time data processing, analytics, and security. And examples of them are the AWS IoT Greengrass, Microsoft Azure IoT Edge, and Google Cloud IoT Edge. We're using blockchain increasingly to make sure that applications can improve data security and integrity. Using distributed ledger technology, businesses can ensure that the data is tamper-proof and transparent, right? And finally, security. As businesses increasingly rely on computing systems and the variety of devices that are proliferating, the need for compute security solutions has actually, multiplied manyfold. Right? And these technologies include secure enclaves, encryption, zero trust security models, etc., etc. And I'm guessing we'll talk a little bit about that later in the podcast.
So, Sandeep, when it comes to holistically looking at these technologies today, everybody's working on data. Data is something that the entire world is working upon, and the kind of transformation that we're trying to look at, I'm sure it comes with a certain set of challenges. Now, help us understand what are the challenges organizations these days are facing when it comes to adopting these technology, and how they're actually trying to overcome them by various strategies.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and that's something that we see, in our own organization as well as in our customer organizations. And I would classify them really in five things. It's infrastructure complexity, it's complexity around data, around security, privacy. It's how do you integrate with existing systems, and where do you find the people to do all that, right? So from an infrastructure complexity perspective, it's just we are just multiplying the number of devices, sensors, networks, and services, right? And it can be very, very complex for organizations to build and manage their edge computing systems, right? Uh, of course, they can start thinking about how do they standardize things, but also it's an opportunity for uh, vendors to start building platforms which actually build in, an integration of a lot of these devices. The second thing is around data management. Like you said, it generates a large volume of data that is difficult to manage, to transmit, to process, to keep secure. And what organizations need to think about it is how, what are the strategies for managing this data, including storage, retrieval, and processing. The thing with data is, yes, there's a lot of data that is getting processed, but storing and transmitting can actually incur costs which can violate all business models that you have, right? It can actually overwhelm your ability to analyze things, right? So you have to really think of it before any organization kind of turns the switch on. You really have to think about, what are your machine learning algorithms? What are your end state goals that you're going to implement, and how you're going to use this data, and where this data is going to be stored, so that you can make the best use of it, right? And then along with that comes that whole security and privacy, right? There are multiple organizations, multiple devices, multiple services, and so we have to figure out how do you secure all this? How do you use encryption, access control, identity management, uh, to be able to assure yourself that the user data uh, is treated with the relevant levels of privacy that each of the jurisdictions demand of it, right? And again, different jurisdictions have different standards. They're slowly kind of, moving towards the same direction, but they are still different things, right? And of course, you have integration with existing systems. What you do at the edge, like how does it actually integrate with the legacy systems, right? How do you make sure that you have the integration strategy at all levels, at technical, at operational, at organizational level, to be able to integrate the data or the underlying uh, analysis that you're getting with with the enterprise systems that you have, right? How do you manage, uh, how do you leverage cloud orchestration tools? How do you develop DevOps practices to be able to do that? And finally, it's about how do you get the skills that are required? As you can see, like as you can, deduce, in all of this, you need a knowledge of networking, you need a knowledge of IoT, security, analytics, machine learning, integration with legacy systems, DevOps, cloud computing, and people struggle in finding one or two of these. Imagine now that you're trying to find many of these, right? So to overcome these, once organizations decide to go on this path and they know that certain use cases are emerging, it might actually be better to create a centers where you start skilling people in many of these things, many of these technologies, because they actually they have an interplay with each other. That as you create multi-skilled people, they'll be able to see trends, they'll be able to take advantages that singular skilled people may not be able to, right? And of course, then it also becomes much more cost effective. And that's where also wider curricula, universities and others should start thinking about, because the skills that will be required is just no longer going to be data, no longer going to be security, no longer be cloud computing, but it's a mixture of all of this. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely, Sandeep. Of course, we are looking at a broader spectrum of both challenges as well as business problems that exist for us, and we are trying to actually overcome them with various strategies and, of course, collaborating in different manners. Could you just throw some light onto the larger business trends that, of course, the global companies should be thinking about when it comes to edge computing?
Yeah, one is the adoption of 5G is happening, right? The technology is getting rolled out, and there will be use cases that will emerge from all over the place. The first thing is any company should keep an open eye and open mind about what is happening, because these cases can actually prove to be fairly disruptive to your business model, right? Uh, so that's one. Second is it will expand your edge computing infrastructure as more and more devices become connected to the internet. These include edge servers, gateways, and other networking equipment, right? That can process and store data closer to where it is generated. We've talked about edge technologies for a long time. I've heard the word edge at least for 6, 7 years now, but this is the time when you will actually see the power of edge quite dramatically, right? Especially with 5G technologies. Uh, Third is around AI, edge AI and machine learning. Uh, Edge computing is enabling businesses to implement machine learning at at various uh, points of at various endpoints in their businesses, allowing them to make real-time decisions without relying on cloud servers, without relying on lengthy times that it takes for you to transfer data. Right. Uh, of course, the most prominent use case is autonomous vehicles, right? Self-driving cars and so on. But think about factories where you can actually take decisions to reconfigure your production lines based on what's happening locally rather than having to send data back and forth, right? And uh, the fourth one is around the whole focus on cybersecurity. How do you invest in solutions and how do you go with risk-based models? And finally, of course, collaborate with edge computing vendors, right? And the thing here is there's a lot of technology, and of course there is a lot of excitement. People are learning new things, playing with new things, interacting. But what that does is uh, it is creating a matrix of various technologies interacting with many others, creating quite a bit of sprawl from a technology perspective, right? Uh, the trend, what you would see is this initial enthusiasm and excitement will start coalescing around a fewer set of platforms, a fewer set of uh, devices, a fewer set of data models, and so on. And so, what the company should be doing is not wait for all of these to happen, but keep an eye on when trends start appearing and make sure that they pick the right trend and right. The classic example I give is when video cassette was launched, there were competing standards for the VHS video cassette, like all those years ago. But ultimately, only one standard uh, survived and gained market share for a long period of time till the CDs came in, right? But if you had pivoted your business on a different model, then there are companies who really suffer the consequences of it, and it will be the same. It will be no different in this particular age and era around edge computing.
Okay, so Sandeep, you touched base on a very important and pertinent point, when it comes to the security breach and the data breach that we are trying to actually look at. Of course, there's this threat that has come along with the usage of the humongous amount of data that we're actually using. Tell us, how are these the security organizations responding to such edge computing threat?
Yeah, it's really started with this whole work from home and hybrid environments, right? Which increased the user access points for enterprise networks, right? And a lot of companies. I work for a tech company. We're kind of fortunate because it was always assumed that we will work from anywhere. But I saw a lot of companies, a lot of successful companies, traditional companies, suddenly having to grapple with the fact that people are going to work en masse from a place which is not their office, right? Uh, this led to an increase in exploitation activity against the older VPN devices and other remote access technologies. But it also pointed out to the fact that people just didn't have enough. There were customers who just had to shut down parts of the user base just because they did not have enough VPN license, for example, right? Now that was the start, And of course, as 5G comes in and as devices proliferate around the edge, this has greatly expanded the attack surface, right? I give you a parallel example, like, in your home, I'm sure you have a TV which is Bluetooth enabled and it can connect to devices. People talk about fridges that can connect to internet. You have toasters. But think about it. Do you really update their patches or their firmware? They're all open vulnerabilities, and if you connect them to your home internet, you're actually increasing uh, the attack uh, surface in your home for people to come in and do malicious activities, because you have all these connected devices. While you update your laptops antivirus, on a pretty ongoing basis, and there are enough products available. But is there something that tells you all the devices that are connected to internet in your home and which ones are at risk? There is none. And that it's the same thing that is happening on the edge with all these IoT devices and sensors and everything else. Uh, what is, how do we keep them updated and to make sure that their firmwares are updated, that they're not open security risks, right? And many of the storage servers and storage systems that companies use for edge processing are targets in their own right, because they are less protected. They are not in the data centers, they are not in the enterprise locations, and they have data that hackers may find interesting. So ISPs, device manufacturers, system integrators, and other stakeholders have started to integrate their own edge computing capabilities for customers and partners, right? And as they do that, there's another trend that raises questions of ownership and responsibility, right? But that also, will start ensuring that security standards around these platforms are strengthened, because now you're not just offering a device, but you're offering a collection of devices on a platform, right? So that is my hope. That is what I think it will evolve into, versus the random set of devices that people produce. They are easy to produce. They are literally $1 to $10 in price. Like what do you expect, right? But the moment they become coalesced into platforms which cost you hundreds of dollars, of course, the security posture of these will also improve. I hope that answered your question around responding to edge computing threats.
It absolutely does, Sandeep. And I was just wondering, you've seen the market so much. You've had the first-hand experience of these responses, the adoption, and the overall market functionality. I should actually quote. Um, what are the tips that you would actually give to our listeners today for better edge security?
So I would say, you go back to your time-tested manner of managing security, which is implement a risk-based approach, identify risks, prioritize and address them, and mitigation, acceptance, offloading, etc. Like just the way you do in corporate applications and corporate infrastructure uh, is the same framework, same approach. Consider increasing security, right? Implement physical controls to mitigate risks, um, uh, tampering, malicious device additions, device swapping, privilege escalations, and so on, right? Plan for a mix of physical and cloud-based security solutions for these to work effectively. And examples include like of course, you are very, very particular about your data centers. You are very particular about your apps hosted in your cloud platforms, right? But also apply the same rigor in remote locations where physical security may not be that strong. Um, that monitoring may not be that strong. How would you increase security, right? Like that's where the physical controls play a part. That's where frequent testing plays a part, right? And then finally, educate employees on the various edge paradigms. Security is a shared risk, a shared responsibility, and the more the organization and people understand what the vulnerabilities may be, the better equipped they will be to do those checks for you, right? So the understanding of security, not just endpoint security, not just like phishing attacks. Like typically when we do a deployment of let's make sure that all our employees understand about security, we kind of train them about phishing attacks and impersonations and so on. We really need to tell them about people, especially who are working around on edge locations, what may go wrong with all these edge devices, and what are the signs, and what are the daily, weekly, monthly checks that they should do to prevent that. And once you do that, of course, the entire organization is enrolled in making sure that your edge is as secure as your data centers.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I think I couldn't have asked for a better conclusion of our conversation today. Thank you for being with us. And by this conversation, I can actually summarize and say that the growing demand of actually edge is being driven by various factors, and including the increasing number of IoT devices and the growth of 5G networks, as you mentioned. The need for the real-time data processing is all that we are looking at. Uh, Also, the growth of 5G networks has enabled the deployment of edge solutions in new applications in so much more than what we actually anticipated. So, Sandeep, thank you so much once again for being here with us and briefing us about all the information and awareness on edge.
Thank you so much, Sukriti, for having me.
All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Stay tuned to TechGig for all the latest tech updates as well as more such tech podcasts. I'll be back with another episode very soon. Till then, stay safe and take care. Thank you.